Lots to discuss on that and on Iran as well, particularly in regard to what Donald Trump has been saying. He's spoken to a number of publications over the course of today and outlets about the Iran war. He told CBS News, I think the war is very complete pretty much, and said the US was very far ahead of schedule. Well, that's a very interesting point, and I'm going to put it to Jonathan Sacerdoti, the writer and broadcaster who covers these issues in great depth. Jonathan, good evening.
Hi there, Peter. How are you doing?
I'm very well, thanks. I'm a bit concerned, to be honest, if the war is very complete, because we haven't got regime change in Iran, but Donald Trump and the Trump administration seems to have changed its tune on a number of occasions with this aspect of things. And now we have a new leader, Mojtaba Khamenei. What do you think of him?
So I think the first thing we have to settle out here is what Donald Trump says is not always consistent with what Donald Trump says. And so the messages that he's been giving have been varied. I think that's actually strategic on his part rather than just careless. It keeps not only his allies guessing, but also his enemies. And I think one of the interesting facts I heard somewhere was that of all the threats Donald Trump tends to make online, for example, on Truth Social, he keeps about 50% of them. That's an important number, because if you never know if there's an equal chance that he's going to carry out a threat or not carry it out, it means that that kind of madman position is one that keeps people in check. So I think in this instance, it's not necessarily the case that the war is over tomorrow, job done, mission accomplished, everyone's leaving. But I think what he might be pointing to is that the real aims of this war have more or less been achieved, and that is to massively degrade the Islamic Republic regime's capabilities in terms of ballistic missiles, launching them, manufacturing them. Also, Iran's air defenses have been massively degraded, and basically the US and Israel are now able to operate more or less unopposed over the skies of Tehran and all of Iran. And those are the main goals. But then you mentioned regime change. Now, that's something that's always been a sort of aim and a sort of not stated aim. I think that regime change might be a great bonus if they're able to bring it about. But then there is also the problem of what the next regime will be. There is no obvious opposition ready to slot in and make everything perfect in Iran. And similarly, if there isn't regime change, they've still achieved quite a lot, because from the perspective of the US and from Israel, what they really need is to massively degrade the capabilities of the regime in Iran. That will be enough in a sense, but obviously that's not enough for the Iranian people, and it's not enough to guarantee that this won't all happen again in some years' time. All of that said, the job done attitude might be in relation to the fact that really the Iran you're seeing today, even if it's still the Islamic Republic of Iran, it is a shadow of its former self. It has almost none of the capabilities that it had. And the Israelis have said at the same time that nothing is finished and everything is carrying on. So make of all that what you will.
Yeah, well, I'm not sure what to make of it, to be brutally honest. Tell us about Mojtaba Khamenei, what he is like. I mean, I heard him being called a hardliner. I'd love to know what a liberal, cuddly Iranian Ayatollah is. I know he's not quite an Ayatollah, but nonetheless, he's clearly as evil as his father in many ways. How much do we know about him and what he might do in this role? It may be a short tenure.
Well, the choice of Mojtaba is interesting because it shows that they are keen to signpost to Donald Trump that they're not doing what he wanted. He was against this particular choice. He wants perhaps somebody that he can control in the position, somebody who might be a reformer in the sense that even if they continue the Islamic revolutionary government and stronghold over the Iranian people and Iran, they may soften the way they do that, and they may fall more in line with what the US wants. Now, this is a symbol, a sign from them that that's not their intention. In fact, it's said that his father said during his lifetime that they should choose someone who is hated by the enemy. And Donald Trump had mentioned Mojtaba by name, which means that that qualified him. In other respects, it's an unfortunate choice that shows perhaps some weakness, because it's not meant to be a hereditary role. And in that respect, this shows that perhaps they wanted this to pass down in the family because it kind of meant that it was more reliable. He is somebody that was seen as having had a big role in the crackdown on the Iranian people after the 2009 Green Revolution, Green Movement. And he is seen as somebody that is quite brutal and hardline, who had been kind of slowly but surely making a name for himself, creating good connections with the Revolutionary Guard. Not necessarily somebody that spoke too much out in public and made massive religious statements in public, but behind the scenes was kind of preparing himself for this eventuality. So in that respect, not necessarily what one might have wanted in terms of falling in line with the US's wishes. On the other hand, it doesn't necessarily show a position of strength on the part of the Islamic Republic regime. And as you said, his days might be numbered. I think anybody that takes up that job is probably going to be looking over their shoulder or up in the sky or just about anywhere around them, because pretty much everyone else has been assassinated by the US and Israel and the strikes, many of them on just the first day in the opening strikes of the war itself. And so this is obviously what they'll be trying to do to him. But Trump has not said that. Trump said, we'll see. That was what he said when he was asked what he plans to do about this. So again, he's leaving things deliberately ambiguous.
Can I ask you, Jonathan, about something that's separate but related here in the UK? Because we're talking about a social cohesion strategy, what the government's talking about today. We're talking about the problems with Islamism, clear problem here in the UK, and we know that there are Iranian sleeper cells that are here. We know that there have been Iranian attacks on people who have attacked the regime. A journalist was stabbed about just over a year ago. Do you think the government can get a handle on this, certainly when it comes to the UK fallout from everything that's happening in the Middle East?
Certainly, if the government here can get a handle on this, it doesn't look like it is doing so. And that social cohesion document does say a lot of things in it which could be promising, and a few things which are quite the opposite. And as with all of these things, it really depends how it's implemented and if it's even implemented. I mean, for example, if we end up with a different prime minister, a different leader of the Labour Party in, I don't know, a few months' time, there would be not necessarily exactly the same commitment to Sir Keir Starmer's attitude towards such a document. So it's quite unknown exactly what would happen. But for example, the idea of cracking down on UK charities, which have basically been set up to abuse the Charity Commission rules and regulation system. Basically, there are charities here, hardcore Islamic charities, which raise money and send it to terrorist groups, including Hamas. There are charities which are suspected of being effectively the soft power arm of the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps here in the UK. I mean, I just last night went down to the centre, the Islamic Centre in England, I think it's called, in northwest London, to see what was going on. After the announcement of Mojtaba Khamenei's appointments, there was something of a gathering and party going on outside, just as there was after the killing of Qasem Soleimani. So this place obviously very aligned with the Islamic Republic regime. And Great Britain knows well that we have these things here within our society, not just that we have them, but they're sort of tolerated. They allow them to continue to exist. The IRGC still not prescribed as a terror group in the UK. All of these things have been called for years, decades probably, and nothing has really happened. So I'm not sure that we're necessarily about to see that change.
Jonathan, as always, thank you. Jonathan Sacerdoti there, the writer and broadcaster. Thanks for joining us.